welcome to a live episode of An Echo of Glory. We come to you on the back of 3 wins in a row, but first let me introduce my guest, Ollie Spirit. Oh, you know what? The Carabao penalty
Hey! God, it's got to get better, hasn't it?
Joining me, Ollie Spiro.
Morning.
Gary Diamond, morning.
Morning.
Chipper, aren't we? 3 wins in a row.
3 wins in a row.
First time in 2024.
Clean sheet, somehow. A brilliant joke this morning already for all of our viewers. I thought it was Chris Waddle's penalty from 1990.
Originally, I didn't know it hit the bar.
Yeah, in the ground, but then,
You in the ground?
I was on the ground, but I actually wasn't in the ground for the penalty because we went 2-0 up.
Yeah.
And I was planning to eat like on the way home, but it got delayed. So after we went 2-0 up, I was like a bit more relaxed. I was like, right, I've got to get something to eat. I'm starving. Popped down to get, they only had chicken tenders left. By the way, best thing in the ground. They're unbelievable, those chicken tenders. As I was coming back up, I just saw the ball blaze over the bar in a big cheer. So I didn't quite see the penalty, actually.
It's not one of your penalties.
Mate.
Actually, you took a good penalty.
I did.
Yeah.
I only ever missed one.
I remember.
think I had a bit
it went over the bar. I remember it.
Yeah, I slipped. It was a bit John Terry in the Champions League final. Not quite the same sort of pressure, but
No, I remember it. It's
similar
still
sort of thing.
going. Hasn't quite come down yet.
No, I scored. I think it was 34 out of 35 penalties that I took.
All right, Matt Letizia.
I think I scored 34 out of 35, but I haven't remembered the stats or thought about it on a daily basis.
I think about it a lot. It's the only thing I can do on a football pitch.
I always tell my son, don't lift the penalty. I took penalties, obviously, at a very base Sunday morning level. I never had the balls to lift a penalty.
No. Bottom right or bottom left, that was it.
Well,
So how I went over the bar, I don't quite know. But
you know what the funny thing is?
Yeah,
If you think about, like, Kane was an exceptional penalty taker, and for the first part of his penalty taking career, we'll ignore the Hearts missy but first part of his penalty taking career, he was very much bottom right, bottom left, really hard. He had that one run up where he did the sort of slightly square, straight up run up where he kind of, and you knew he was going straight down the middle, and the first penalty missed at Anfield when we drew 2-2.
Yes.
That was like, you knew he was going straight, and so did the goalie. But the
That
first
was a
penalty I remember him
conspiracy.
lifting was in the World Cup against Panama, and he suddenly found that
Whipped
absolute
it.
top corner
2 in a row.
that Shearer used to find.
Yeah.
So good penalty. We're getting to penalties here, but last night's was a wonderful penalty because really important part of the game because you've just gone 2-0 up and you're thinking, don't be stupid. Oh, well done, you've just given away a penalty. 2-3 minutes after we'd gone 2-0 up, and a penalty miss, and then one that when you're in the ground, it looks like you've literally hit it 20 yards over, and
clipped the top of the bar.
added to the general comedy of the game and like a Europa level thing. But yeah, it's just perfect
It was
timing.
brilliant. It fitted in so beautifully with the whole genre of the game. It was. We'll come to it. It was one of my favourite games in a long time.
We'll come to that. If you are watching us live, do get involved in the comments. We'd love to hear from you, talking about last night's game, the run we're on, maybe a little bit on Brennan Johnson's form, looking ahead to Man United. So get in the comments, and we'll be sure to give you a shout.
If my kids are listening live, get back to school.
Just a reminder, I think the last time that the three of us were on the show, there was some doom and gloom and end of days. What if we lose the next 4? And I said, what if we win the next 4?
All right, well, what
and
if
here we
Wait,
are.
Hold on, 3.
Here we are. Three out of 4 with the last
were
one
you
to
talking
come.
about United?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
And we'll talk about that as well.
We're going to do what we always do, a bit of club news. We've had the fans forum this week. Obviously, people thinking that it was all cherry-picked by Levy Stooges. I don't know who was picked and who wasn't. But you've got a few thoughts on what was said, Gaz?
I think there were just 2 things really that we were discussing that came up mainly. And the first thing to say is it is very sanitised. Whether the people are handpicked or not, the whole thing is very sanitised because whoever does go has to submit their questions in advance. I hadn't realised
Is that right?
Yeah, I hadn't realised that, but I double-checked that. And they do have to submit their questions in advance. And I think even when they go to the audience, they know what the person's going to ask. So, Levy's prepared, Lounge's prepared. Okay. They've all got their pre-prepared answers. It's not like an AGM, in days gone by with shareholders where you could really challenge Levy and challenge things that were going on at the club. So it's a little bit.
How many AGMs have you been to?
I haven't, but I know people have. But you could challenge them. So it is very sanitised. It is a bit. I'm not entirely sure the point of it if they can prepare the answers in advance, and also. The other point is when a question is asked, they answer it, and you don't have the opportunity to come back.
Okay.
So it's just kind of the whole thing feels a little bit pointless. But there were a couple of things that came up, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, look, the one that's always going to fuel the fire on social media is anything to do with Daniel Levy. And we're not going to go into whether we like him, hate him on the show. But, you know, he didn't mention that one of his greatest achievements was winning the World Cup,
World Cup.
League Cup in 2008, sorry. And you know what? The three he chose I'd have chosen exactly the same. You know, if you think about legacy as an owner, the stadium is going to start. Pardon?
You'd have chosen the players as one of the
Well,
achievements.
I'm talking about legacy, things that are going to last the longest time in anyone in the Spurs sort of fraternity are memories. So the physical thing is the stadium, which is going to stand there for 100 years. That is a demonstrative achievement and incredible thing to have built.
Yeah, when you think back to never a brick.
Number two, the Champions League final, which is genuinely generational. The Champions League run, we didn't win it, but you know, we all took part. But third, the players. You think we are still talking about Modric, we're still talking about Berbatov, we're still talking about Bale, we will still talk about Kane, we will still be talking about them in 30, 40 years' time.
Yeah.
And therefore, they are the things that actually have the longest legacy. The League Cup win in 2008, to me, was a great day, loved it, but it's not something I'm going to set aside as one of the great things.
It's a funny thing because, I was talking to my dad last night and he was sort of a little bit angry that Levy had gone for the Champions League final over the League Cup, and he was saying to me, "Who would do that? Who would go for the League Cup, Champions League final over the League Cup?" And I was like, "Well, I would." And I'll tell you why. Right? Is everybody talks about trophies. I grew up in the 90s watching United and wanting them to do well in Europe because it wasn't for us. Europe wasn't our thing. We weren't ever going to play in Europe. We were never going to play in the Champions League. I remember the first time I ever heard the Champions League music. At our stadium at White Hart Lane.
You cried.
And I did.
Yeah,
I got emotional.
Yeah.
And then at the Champions League final, watching my team, I always dreamt one day to go to a Champions League final and watch one. I never imagined it would be to watch Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. That just wasn't a thing. That wasn't for us. So to be there in Madrid, and okay, we lost, but to be there in Madrid, experience that with your club, your team, that you never imagined that could be a thing, watch them come out and line up before the Champions League final and hear that music. Again, I had tears coming down my face.
I know we lost. And again, I'm not going to talk about the good and the bad of Levy. We should own that. We got to a Champions League final.
100%. And here's the thing, right?
Why should we be embarrassed about that? You know, it's
because Spurs, you lost it. I've never watched it back. I don't think you've ever watched it back. You've never watched it back. We were there, sat together in the worst seat in the house. It was a great day ruined by a football match. But we got to like you just said in the 90s, if you said to me we would get to a European Cup final or Champions League final, I would have laughed your head off.
Yeah.
My head off.
If you said we'd play in the Champions, you've got to remember, the end of the 90s, going into the noughties, if you even said to me, we're going to have one campaign in the Champions League, I'd be like, oh, I'll take that. Yeah. You would. We are so spoilt now with where the club has got to.
But people will say this is in spite of Levy, like nothing to do with him.
They
That's not an argument I really want to have.
They can say what they like. They can say whatever they like, right? You can say it was Poch, you can say it was Levy. Ultimately, a couple of managers now have got us to the Champions League. Poch, Harry Redknapp. So, and I've no doubt that Andrew will one day as well, right? So, whether it's the managers, whether it's Levy, it doesn't matter. The reality is we got to the Champions League final, and that to me was just sensational.
If you're going to slate him for every single mistake he makes, you also have to praise him when the things come together.
Yeah.
As I said, we all have our opinions, but the point is that there was a moment in time when everything came together.
Yeah.
And
almost,
it's probably going to be the thing that is also his biggest issue, insofar as it set the expectations of the fans. The three of us are not really that interested in revenue streams, apart from the fact it's like, great, we've got a stable football club, and blah blah blah, all the accounting sort of stuff. But we are football fans, and we all get upset when our football team is not doing as well as we perceive it should be. And the problem is there is a wide ranging perception about what our football team should be. If you talk to the three of us, we still are scarred by the 90s. We are still carrying that baggage of, you talk to the guys who are sort of 10 years older than us who grew up in the 80s, and they have a much different perception because they grew up with that early 80s team that were conquering, and they were, a brilliant football team. So it's where you've come from. You speak to these guys who have I've been a Spurs fan for 10 years or whatever it is. And it's like, well, you've seen us basically being in the top 6 every
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
You're,
well,
and you're throwing toys out of pram when we finished 7th. Like,
That's right. They don't
yeah.
see that.
So 3 of us have been through everything. Sorry.
A couple of comments from Angelo Tyro. Not sure what he means. Beth England's a good shout. Big up. I mean, she was on the forum, was she?
I think she was there as captain of the women's team. Beth England's great. She represents the women so well.
Yeah, and a big player for them. Mikey's talking about last night's game. What would Conte have done to that match? Put it to sleep.
Yeah,
well,
he would have. He
probably.
actually would. He would have said, right, okay, we're down to 10 men. We'll play for them.
Actually, funnily enough, his first game was it Vitesse Arnhem, and Romero got sent off. And he switched to, I can't remember exactly, like maybe switched to a 3 in midfield, but he did make a rating point and the different approaches. So I think we'll come on to that later. But yeah.
Gary, you wanted to also mention about Andrew's comment on the forum.
So that was the other thing that came up. That was the other thing that caused a bit of controversy was, and I think it caused controversy mostly because firstly, when it was reported, got completely misrepresented because the question was asked, successful teams generally are a bit more pragmatic than your style of play or words to that effect. Do you think that you need to adapt? He said, yes, successful teams are pragmatic. No, we're not going to adapt. That's not for us. I want style of play. And I think people sort of understood or interpreted that.
It's all right.
James,
the
okay?
producer just fallen off his chair.
Okay.
Oh. So are you banging it? All right. Can I get off the Wi-Fi?
Windows update.
I'll come off the Wi-Fi if you want.
Some tech problems. But yeah, so it got sort of misreported. And even then, when the clip actually came out, it's quite clear to me what Andrew's saying. He's saying, I'm not going to sacrifice the way that we play for short-term success. I'm going to implement a style and a philosophy that will achieve success and then ongoing success as well. And I think that's what he was driving at. But
it showed last night.
Yeah.
And Ross Hughes is just a good guy, Ross Hughes, that we beat Vitesse 3-2
in
that game. All right. I listen, I agree. It was taken totally out of context, obviously at the time on social media, the Ange comments, and then 24 hours later, you saw the actual comment.
But it was lovely, the actual comment, and when he said, and we will achieve success and it will be glorious. And it's,
is that our Poch? We're going to make you proud.
No.
Poch said it first. And then they reeled it out for Nuno, and it didn't quite have the same.
Really?
Okay. But it's also very interesting, and maybe it's a lesson for kids that when you look at things on social media and you get a quote, and then it quickly gets reposted, this and the other. Ange's quote got cut, and then was posted immediately. So half the quote isn't the full quote, and actually half the quote was very
the quote totally.
It was basically like, I'm going to be gun. Essentially, I'm going to be gun ho and take notes. It's that when then you read the whole thing. So kids, primary sources, read them all. Yeah. Question.
Bit more club news. The 21s. It's the 21s.
Was it 21s?
Lost to Exeter in the
whatever league. Yeah.
In the EFL Trophy, and the Carabao Cup draw has been made. When we got a home tie, I was like, get in.
But you knew what was coming because you'd seen
all the rubbish teams.
Yeah. Like I think
we
there
were
was
third out, weren't we? Or something?
No. We were
fourth or fifth.
Yeah, like there'd been a couple of like rubbish teams that come out first. Like,
We also knew that there would be another team that would get a relatively easy draw as well.
Don't want to talk about them.
But yeah, but obviously City have sort of, Pep made the comments about, I'm not going to take it too seriously.
Now he's drawn away to Tottenham. Will that change?
Yeah.
I think the Rodri injury, I think, is going to, and the conscious thing about the Club World Cup thing. I think he's very, and he knows he's in a competition. He's got, still he wants to win Champions League. Didn't win it last year. As I said a couple of weeks ago, I think the League Cup to us is way down the pecking order.
Yeah.
So we'll all go. Yeah, because it'll be a good occasion. It's our first. Am I right? It's our first home League Cup draw.
Yeah. No, do you know something? I looked at that, and I have to admit I was wrong. We played West Ham. Do you remember in the quarter-final?
Yes, yes, I do remember. December.
It's our second
December in
stadium.
COVID. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah,
Lucas Moura scored.
Did we beat?
James, one of our commentators, is saying he's got a sound issue.
I monitor all of those things.
Yeah,
You don't need to stop
you seen it? I didn't know if you were there.
Okay.
I'm being shouted at.
Okay.
Otherwise, all you end up doing is spending the whole time reporting on.
You got told off.
I've got properly told off.
Okay, so I had forgotten about that one. I was at that game as well.
That was good. Now I can remember that game, but it was
Yeah, we're all
Yeah, I
hoping
think-
for
I think
Preston.
City- I
I'm
think
all
hoping for
there.
Preston, Angelo, mate. And we end up drawing City. Look,
But I think City are. I think the Rodri thing will really upset them naturally. You know, he's that good, and they've now lost him for the season. Pep is going to have a natural caution about who
those
he's
extra
risking.
games.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I don't know if you are aware. So like if you've got the Spurs calendar and it puts fixtures in automatically, it's put that fixture in on the Tuesday.
No, it won't be.
Well, it's put that. So this is it. It's put the fixture on the Tuesday. We've got Palace on the Sunday, and then at the moment it looks like the City game's on the Tuesday. I'm convinced it's got to be the
So is
Wednesday
that
because
just
then we've got Villa away on the Sunday after.
Does that mean that we've got before the Palace game? Have we got a Europa game? Because if it's already on a Sunday, we must do.
Well, I don't know, but my bigger issue is if we've got Palace on the Sunday and then they're making us play City on the
Remember,
on the
City
Tuesday.
played Arsenal on Tuesday, and then they played on Arsenal on Sunday, and
Yeah,
then
we're-
played Watford on Tuesday.
We're at home to AZ, then we're away to Palace, and then we are away to Villa. City play on the Saturday against Southampton. All right, let's get to last night. Gary, you described it as one of the funniest games you've ever seen. You guys were there. I was actually working on the game for TNT. So I wasn't there, but I was very much involved. Present but not involved. Involved but not present. And my wife's been in touch. James, I won't tell you what she said. In goal last night, I'll do the team. Vicario, Gray, Dragusin played all of 7 minutes. Van der Ven, Davies, in midfield, 4-3-3. Sarr, Bissouma, Bergvall, and Johnson, Solanke, and Son. Ollie, you said to me you wanted to go stronger than that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of of the view that by luck, judgment, or whatever it is, I think we've stumbled across a formation in the last couple of weeks which seems to be rigid and it seems to be getting the best out of more players. And it seems to be with more traditional overlapping fullbacks rather than the inverted underlapping. And the three in midfield, and I hate to sound like I know anything about this, but rather than being a 6-8-10 as your three, so call it Basuma, Sarr, Maddison.
By the way, Bissouma, Sarr, I know it's Bissouma, Bentancur, and Maddison have only ever started 3 matches together at Tottenham.
Okay. So rather than being the 6-8-10, which we saw last season, and then it was last night was Bissouma, Sarr, Bergvall doing that 6-8-10. In a couple of games we've won, we've actually had this 8, Bentancur playing at the base and then playing 2 10s with Kulusevski and Maddison, and we suddenly seem to be a bit tighter. And then I look at the wing issues that we have, and I don't think any of our wingers are good enough. And that's I want Son to be central. I can't. He's no longer a left winger, and
Well, Son's not going to be anything for a little while now.
well,
Well,
if
Ronnie's
if
just said on the
Ronnie,
comments, Son hamstring.
No,
I don't know.
I heard this earlier. I heard that Son's out for a while.
but
Really?
Uh-huh.
I want us to be 85. I want us to be 85%. First team. These guys can keep playing and playing. They've got to keep playing within this sort of structure, getting more and more used to it. But then last night, I think that he reverted back to the sort of structure of last season's team, which is open and it gets the least out of the wingers. And we started slowly, and I thought a lot of players actually were quite under par. And I thought a lot of them were actually making those mistakes that usually happen. So I wasn't hugely happy about the team. We got the job done somehow by luck or judgment, but I don't think it was. I would have been stronger. I want them to start playing in this rhythm and playing this 8-10-10 in midfield with narrow forwards.
In terms of the structure, I agree, but I think the team was probably right.
Yeah, I wasn't too fussed about the team. I think they're the sort of opposition where it should have been, and in the end was a free hit to play some players and get minutes into the legs. And as much as I take on your point, I prefer to see the 2 10s rather than a 6-8-10. And I think it is a better system all round. At the end of the day, you're putting out 11 players versus Carabao. Honestly, we could have put out our under-21s and I would have expected us to win. And that's complete
Do you know
disrespect to
something?
Carabao.
They nearly knocked
Come
Leverkusen out last
on,
season.
come on. We did our best last night. And we could. I mean, let's be honest here. They've missed a penalty. They've missed countless chances and a disallowed goal. We could have lost last night. I mean, we were with 3-0. That was I don't mean negative, but what that was.
Because we had 10 men. If Dragonsu doesn't get sent off, I know we started slowly.
I think if Jackson doesn't get sent off, I mean, I said 4-0. I predicted 4-0. I think you guys predicted 3-0. Won 3-0 with 10 men and absolute joke game.
But I have to say, I know we made Carabao's life a little bit easier. They had a couple of decent players. Actually, Nino can play, one or two unpronounceables that I can't remember. Like I said, Leverkusen had to score twice, as they do in injury time, to knock them out last year. And they were needed the first team to beat Leverkusen twice. Leverkusen got back in the game both times late on. Yes, they're from Azerbaijan and and all that sort of stuff. They weren't that bad, and Dragosin made their life a lot easier. And boy, did they miss some chances. The XG, I know we don't. I think a penalty XG is 0.8. Can't remember. Their XG was 2.5 to our 1.5. Okay, I get all of that. We had 10 men. We got through it and we won.
Yeah,
but the start was sloppy. I think because of the hour delay or 35-minute delay, and the red card didn't help. There were just a few things that Ange didn't like, and I think he's right. Sloppy start, sloppy passing. The pass to Dragosin was silly. He's let the ball run across him, which is amateurish. And I also think at that point he should probably let the guy go through and trust your goalkeeper, or trust that he's not going to score, and you take being 1-0 down after 7 minutes rather than 10 men. But
agreed.
If you actually look, when Dragosin opens his body out, he could go back to Vicario. That's simple. He's actually got nowhere to go. Everybody else is up there. The midfield have disappeared. We did it. Then Davies did it about 5 minutes later.
Yeah, when Vicario had to come charging.
It was to say there was actually a really interesting thing on. Is it John McKenzie?
Oh well, listen, we're in trouble with Dave McKeoch. We're not being negative. We got through it, and to play 85 minutes with 10 men against anybody and come out with a 3-0 win is excellent. I just thought we were sloppy for the first 10 minutes, and we had a man sent off in the first 10 minutes, and we were sloppy, and Carabao had some really good chances. That's the end. If you don't like that, fine. That's not negativity. That's what happened.
My biggest issue, and David, thanks for your comment, like more just the stupidity and naivety from our team. For example, just on half time, we're playing the ball backwards, and that's when Vicario had to run half the length of our half to clear the ball out. You're like, lads, it's 45 minutes, you're 1-0 up, and you got 10 men. What are you taking a chance for now? It's this game management thing. We're not talking about dark arts. There is simple game management. You've just had a penalty missed.
I'm not being sure.
That's
no, but
like, right.
No, but they've just missed a penalty. You're thinking, just take a breather, lads. Calm down. But then we're passing it straight back to them. They had another chance a minute, like 30 seconds later. It's like, guys, I'm not saying be like that lot down the road, dropping down on the floor every 2 minutes. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, just take a breath. Chill, relax. Just take that. We're 2-0 up. We're 3-0 up. Just calm down, because
I actually don't agree with that.
But if that penalty goes in, it's a very different game.
Listen, I think at all moments last night we had them at arm's length. I think we had them under control. Yeah, they created a couple of chances,
and they will do because we had 10 men.
And you've got 10 men, so you're going to expect that. We're not going to camp on the edge of our box. We're not that team, so you know that it doesn't matter who you play. If you've got 10 men, they're going to create chances. But ultimately, even if the penalty goes in, I just felt at all points we were better in every department. We're a better football team.
As we should be,
them.
and as we are.
And look, for Dave, positives. I thought Solanke up front was fantastic.
Superb.
I thought he was really good. Johnson 3-3 now, fantastic, great,
a lovely finish.
Yeah. I felt very, very sorry for Bergvall, and sorry for the fans, because we all want to see more of him. To me, I was there last night, and even with 10 men, I was as relaxed watching Tottenham as I've ever been. I just didn't feel as though
we were going to score. We were going to score.
We were going to score a couple of goals. I just didn't feel there was any danger.
By the way, I was saying, so to wind back, by the way, so John McKenzie did a piece the other day about the Spurs build-up versus the other top 6 teams, and the other top 6 teams are really compact. So that makes it easier to press because you're pressing a smaller space. Spurs is a much wider thing, so you have it's harder to press, but it's hard. But obviously, you've got to pass the ball further to the players.
Well, I think that's what happened with the Dragosin red card.
And that's exactly what happened with the Dragosin red card. What I'm saying is, like, these things will get these things. Hopefully, they're back at Spurs at the training ground today, and they're saying, hey, you know what, guys, that was maybe a bit wide. Maybe come in, a couple of yards. We know we're on a very long process to being hopefully a better football team. But also, I'm going to say, we are talking about experienced footballers there. And yes, they might be young, but these guys have been top of their schools, teams, blah, blah. They've reached the top to come playing for Spurs. There must be a moment out there when they're like, one of the guys is saying, lads, just
Whack it.
maybe let's just all, because you've got to have leadership on the pitch. Yes, Ange is the manager, and I'm delighted that we have approached a game with 10 men and going back to the Chelsea game in a different way to other teams would do it. I'm delighted that is our football club, and cut my veins there, and I'm bleeding blue and white. That's what we are, and whether we win or lose, we'll die trying. But sometimes you're like, oh, lads, just take a bit of responsibility on the pitch and just breathe. Kane, when he takes penalties, big, deep breaths. It's like, just get the adrenaline out there. You've missed the penalty, just breathe. I'm not asking for much. I'm not saying, but just sometimes just have a bit of game thought and saying, you know what, guys, they're now pressing here. So, let's actually, we've got Solanke, who, as I agreed with, brilliant last night.
We do.
And I'm very, very happy.
Need to go a
so
little bit longer
sometimes Mick, learn on the job, mix it up a bit, and this becomes an even better football team. Even in the best days of Poch, there was mixed up, always mixed up. So all the best teams mix it up.
I want to just go back to David, who's been back on. I'm not necessarily taking shots at you guys. He's more than welcome to. We get it all the time. It's the wider argument. I've heard from fans. We need to enjoy our wins, absolutely, because we seem to be brutal after a loss, absolutely. I think last night there was arguments on social media about it. Like, we won 3-0, we got through it.
I haven't seen any social media because I drove home last night and I just haven't been on social. I haven't seen any of this. But in my mind, I'm like, I came out of that ground happy, really enjoyed it, enjoyed everything about it, enjoyed the madness of it, the carnage of it. It was everything that a European night should be. Like, delayed kickoff, absolute comedy at all points in the game. Some great goals, a good win, keeping the opposition at arm's length, even with 10 men. I came out of there like everybody's going to be happy. And I'm sat here like, really? People aren't happy? What's going on?
No, we've won. We've got, I was looking at the fixtures last night as well. Away to Ferencváros, let's try and use that as a real opportunity to improve our away record. We should go there and win. I'd like to think we're going there and win. And then we're home to Alkmaar, where obviously Troy Parrott's going to score. But again, so we could and should be 9 from 3, which is and then because then you go into Galatasaray away, Roma at home, and actually if you're 9 from 3, which I think we should be going for, you can take your foot off the accelerator in other parts of the thing, because that should be enough to. So we won last night. Great. We've now got a guy suspended for 1 match.
Yeah, Romero comes back in.
Romero comes back in because of his suspension. The Spence thing is annoying because I'd like to have another defender to be part of that rotation. But look, we've won.
I think Ian hits the nail on the head and alludes to what you were saying, John. Ian Sinfield says it's a great result. They're a lot better than I expected, and their name and where they come from leaves them open to derision, but they had decent players, and that's what you were saying. They are a good team, and this is what I'm going back to, is we had 10 men. They were always going to create chances against 10 men, but at no point was I concerned, genuinely at no point was I concerned that there was going to be an upset. I just felt we actually played very well, generally controlled the game, and I was pretty relaxed. I'm not normally relaxed watching Tottenham. Angelo, the traffic on the way home was surprisingly okay. Thank you for asking.
Well, that was because of the half-an-hour delay.
Yeah, to be fair, I actually set out early because of the weather and got there in plenty of time, and then it turned out to be in even more plenty of time than I thought. But on the way home, it was fine.
Listen, no one here is complaining. I just think that, there were some sloppy things. We had 10 men. We won. We're going to talk in a minute to a Man United fan. 3 in a row. How are you feeling coming into Sunday?
So, yeah, because this was something that we discussed where, you guys were a bit concerned and said, what if we lose some of the next 4 or whatever? And I said, what if we win the next 4? What if we're sat here?
We are.
Yeah, what if we're sat here next Monday having won those 4? Like, everything looks a bit rosy and very different. And here we are. Okay, we scraped past Coventry, but we did it.
We had our Mark Robbins moment, maybe.
A bit battered Brentford. United worry me. I said on Monday, because I wasn't expecting to be here today, so you're welcome. But I said on Monday that United worry me just because I think a lot of teams will adapt the way they play to play against us. Brentford didn't, and they got battered. Arsenal and Newcastle very much did, and they came away, I think, somewhat fortuitously with results. United don't need to adapt. They're perfectly set up in the like not like coincidentally perfectly. It's not intentional. I don't think that's the way they want to be. I just think that they have ended up being this sort of deeper lying team.
Yeah.
They're a moments football team, aren't they?
And they've got a decent enough defence that will be tough to break down, and they've got Fernandes in midfield, who, if he gets on the ball, they've got 3 speed merchants up front. Like, they are very well set up to hurt us. And it's at Old Trafford. They're not adapting the way they play. They're just going to play their normal game. So it's not like anything that's unfamiliar to them. So it is a game that worries me. I don't think United are great, by the way. This isn't me saying United are particularly good. I just think the way that they play is, and then they're going to play such their natural game that, you know, they worry me. But went there last season. We played very well. We drew 2-2. I think we should have done better. And my honest thought is, if Tottenham turn up and we don't make mistakes and we really play a good game of football for us, then I think we should beat them.
Well,
however,
great question
Son is injured.
Great question by Sydney Duke. If Coventry was Ange's Mark Robbins game, who will be remembered as Mark Robbins' equivalent, Spence or Johnson?
Spence.
Spence.
Yeah, I know Johnson scored the winner, but Spence saved the game.
Yeah.
But also, like, you know, this will upset Gary, but you know, Mark Robbins was quickly discarded from United, so it's also got to be a player that's discarded afterwards.
Spence then.
Yeah, so it's probably more likely to
Just
be
to
Spence.
go back quickly to last night before we carry on with the United chat. How good was Solanke? We
Yes,
dropped in on
brilliant.
that briefly.
Well done, Dominic Solanke.
This
Brilliant.
is from Will
Fantastic.
Walsh. His press and through ball for Johnson's goal was excellent. We talked about it after Brentford. Centre forward with the most presses in the Premier League this season. I'm discounting that. Yankuba Minter. Yeah, we've got a guest coming. Yeah. So Solanke will be key on Sunday, closing down the United.
He scored there last season, didn't he?
He scored both games against them last season.
Yeah, I'm really happy we got him.
Right, we're going to, as we are live, we just got to sort of do this live, so apologies for that. We are going to talk to Ian Irvin, friend of the show, joined us twice last season. I need to turn myself on.
Fair.
Friday morning. Turn myself on. Ian, can you hear us? I'm fine. How are you? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, well, it wasn't last season, but all right. We've got Ollie and Gary who are with us. Ian, Premier League reporter and a friend of an Echo of Glory. Ian, thanks for coming on again. Spoke to you twice last season, and I got the sense you weren't really sure where United were yet under Ten Hag. 6-7 games into this season, it's been a bit up and down. Where are United under Ten Hag? Yeah.
Just doesn't feel like much has changed in some ways. The game the other night, it felt like United fans had seen over and over again in the last couple of seasons. And despite yet more signings in the summer, more signings that the majority of which Ten Hag wanted as well, there's still not really, clear patterns to the way that United want to play. They can do it in moments, they can do it in phases, but they're still not stringing together 90-minute performances, unfortunately.
Just so one thing, the celebrations from Twente, the fans stayed in, and the Twente were the old, you're celebrating a draw sort of thing. United are still a thing. Is that added pressure to United that they are still a thing and they're not acting like a thing at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe I'm being slightly biased. I don't think I am though, having spoken to people within the industry and within the sport. I think Manchester United is still the most difficult place to play football. It feels like the pressure of the past weighs so heavy on the present players, and the more that the team doesn't reach those heights, the more that pressure piles on. All right, so FC Twente celebrate like they'd won the Europa League the other night. That gives you an idea of how the perception of United hasn't really changed abroad. Coming to Old Trafford and getting a draw is not the achievement it probably was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but still, there still feels like they're a scalp. It still feels like teams raise their game against United as much as playing, the best teams in the world. So I do think there is an added pressure, and I do think that Ineos have tried to look more into the personality of the new signings, the background of the players, to try and ensure that they are bringing in characters who can cope, because there has been a number of players in recent years who just haven't looked like they've been able to deal with the scrutiny, deal with the pressure, and obviously it's meant that the club's not been as successful as it should be, despite still spending a fair amount of money.
In, I want to go back to the issue with Ten Hag and on Sunday. If it doesn't go well, where is that going to leave him? I'll tell you where I'm coming from is the summer was not a ringing endorsement of support from the board. Took a long time to sort that contract, and then I think it was a 1-year extension, really. So it wasn't exactly a massive, we're right behind you. I wonder if the FA Cup win is kind of ironically a negative for United, because I think if they hadn't have won that, he would have gone. I mean, you can never say it's a negative, but you know what I mean? Like, he wins that, and I think that earns him this contract, and you are now where you are. What happens on Sunday? Where is it at with Ten Hag? If you lose on Sunday, is it becoming untenable?
I wouldn't go that strong, purely because it feels like they're in the same situation, win, lose or draw. To be honest, it feels like there's still, a longer term vision that the club's working towards. Whether Ten Hag's part of that or not still remains to be seen. The summer was even less of an endorsement than what you just said, because it was a 1-year option. Really, the terms didn't change. It wasn't an extension. It was just stay the same. And initially, it was thought that they would renegotiate. And that they'd actually work on a new deal, because obviously the people who did the original deal with Ten Hag have all gone now. Richard Arnold's CEO, John Mert, the football director, none of them are at Manchester United anymore. And new regime, we thought, would try to sort of renegotiate the terms, and that didn't happen. It was just a straightforward option. So the start of the summer wasn't an endorsement for him. There's no question about that. But they have really doubled down in their support for him, publicly and privately. A couple of weeks ago, you had Omar Barada and Dan Ashworth speaking directly to the press pack up here, and speaking in very positive terms about Ten Hag, reiterating their support for him. And even the summer transfer window, that he's been able to choose the assistants that's come in. There's been a lot about, well, Ruud van Nistelrooy's there just to take over when Ten Hag fails. I don't think that's true. I think he was in line for a job like Burnley in the Championship, Van Nistelrooy. So to suggest that he's been brought in by Ineos as the obvious successor, the sort of parachute option like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was, I'm not sure that's accurate. Could happen. You never know in football, do you? But I don't think that's the plan. And Ten Hag endorsed it. He chose him. Rennie Hacker, he's worked with before as well and knows very well, another one who he brought in. He accepted that he needed to change a little bit. He accepted that the support team around him needed to be altered and needed to be upgraded. And they worked together to do that. The transfer window as well, it's not like Ineos has bought all their own players, that Ten Hag's had no say on it all. He has had the ultimate say. He's supported it. Lenny Yoro is probably the only pure Ineos signing in there. Ugarte maybe. But the other ones, Ten Hag's been behind, he's pushed, and they've supported him in that. So to then rip that up sort of 5 or 6 games into the season, when they are talking all the time about this long-term project, this stability. The new CEO, Omar Barada, said just this week that the project is to try and win the Premier League by 2028, which is Manchester United's 150th anniversary. So, they're in it for the sort of medium term at the very least. And I just can't see how ripping everything up so early in the season, when you've spent so much money again, when you've made so much noise to support him, when, let's face it, you've gone around Europe trying to look at replacements and come back with nothing in the end, it makes sense to stick with him.
So 3 of us are kids of the early 80s. When we got into football,
you don't look it.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment. But, when we got into football, we got the sort of back end of a really dominant club who got knocked off their perch, and then your club obviously took over. But you'd had a sort of 30-ish year sort of hiatus of winning the league. Do you see there being room for United again dominating football the way they did? Now you've got City there, which was never really a realistic problem, but a much, let's be honest here, a better run Liverpool as well. Because when you took over, you guys were building a stadium while still in occupation. So it's the biggest in the country by a mile. You have more money than everyone else, and you could pick off the Premier League best players as and when, many from our club. So with the landscape having changed, do you think Man United's culture understands what they're working within and to actually beat City and Liverpool locally?
Well, that is the clear ambition, and it is much easier said than done, isn't it? I mean, you thought that Jurgen Klopp leaving Liverpool would produce a big drop off. Well, I did at least anyway from the outside, having seen what happened at United post Ferguson, at Arsenal even post Wenger to a lesser extent. I thought there would be a drop off. So far, it's not looked like it. Certainly, watching Liverpool win 3-0 at Old Trafford, it didn't feel like there'd been any drop off whatsoever. So. I guess still there is the question that when Pep Guardiola leaves Manchester City, what sort of shape will they be in following that? Who do they get to replace him? How good are they once, this generation of players are not what they were? Is the ambition, is the know-how, the resource, can you get to this level again, this collection of players, because they've been absolutely phenomenal over the last 3 or 4 years? They probably can because they're extremely well run, and you think there's already a succession plan in place. But for United, I think when Ten Hag arrived, it was looking at what happens when Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola move on. Can United fill that gap afterwards, like Arsenal are beginning to do with Arteta? And sorry to mention that on this podcast, but the progress that they're making. So it's a very hard question to know what happens longer term for United. If you'd asked us in 2013 when Ferguson left, would the next 11 years go like this? And I don't think anyone would have thought it would be quite this difficult. There was always going to be a drop off because he did so much, and the modern setup of the clubs just don't allow a manager to have that sort of influence and control that Ferguson had. So I guess if you get the right people in the right places around the club, then you have to think that they'll move forward. And listening to anyone who knows the people that United have put in place so far, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Dan Ashworth's reputation strong. Omar Barada's very, very highly thought of at City. They were gutted when he left, and even the other pieces that they're putting in place below that. Sir Jim Radcliffe's motto all the time is best in class, best in class. He seems to say it in every single interview. Now, they have to prove that they're best in class by working well at United, because some of the people I've mentioned, I'll add Jason Wilcox to that as well, who's come from Southampton. They've not worked at this level before, so they have to prove that they're best in class at this level. But if they can get the pieces around the team right, then you'd think eventually that will feed into the first team picture, because for the moment, there's still lots of work to be done, no question.
And in the short term, 3 days or 2 days, what are we, Friday? Couple of days. We play you Sunday.
Aren't you in stats, Johnny?
It's been a busy week. I've got a stat for you. You've beaten us 24 times at home in the Premier League. Only Arsenal against Everton 25 have a better home record against another team in the Premier League. It's been a place we've not got much. It's changed a little bit in the last few years. How do you see Sunday going?
I think it suits United to play Tottenham, I'll be honest. There seems to be something about Tottenham at home that brings the best out in United as well. In recent times, I'm going back to Ronaldo's hat-trick, 3-2, even the 2-0 win for United a couple of years ago. Probably still the best example of Erik Ten Hag's football at Old Trafford in the Premier League, in a consistent performance for 90 minutes. They played so well, and you'd think that Tottenham would come to attack. Postecoglou's been so strong in his assertion that he will play a certain way, and good luck to him. Come to Old Trafford and do that, and hopefully we'll see an entertaining game. Two teams going at each other, and still, despite, Crystal Palace first half this season, so a couple of weeks ago, United didn't score. They did everything but score. It was ridiculous. They created so much in that game and couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And FC Twente the other night in the first half, the level of performance wasn't as good. But again, the issue was putting the ball in the net, just that final part. So, there's nothing to say that that's going to be solved for Sunday. So they could have another 90 minutes like that. But I still think it suits this group of players to play on the counter-attack. I still think it suits them to counter-punch, despite what Ten Hag is working towards and the control that he wants in games. I still think they're a very strong transition side, and the likes of Garnacho, Rashford, Bruno, Fernandes, Højlund when he's playing, they still feel like players who are better counter-punching than controlling games. So in that way, Tottenham might suit them. But then again, they've not shown much so far this season, certainly not in an entire performance. Even Southampton away, the first half hour was a mess. Yeah, they were very lucky to survive that. So I don't think you're facing a bullish Manchester United at all, to be honest.
And the prediction before we let you go?
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah.
Thanks, boys.
No, a prediction.
But
Sorry.
Can
go
I
on.
just
I need
pick
a
you up on
prediction from you.
something?
I need a prediction from you. Go on.
Did I just hear
Oh.
on a Tottenham podcast that winning a trophy could be a negative? By the way, I mean that's some spin.
No, I just meant it in the sense of if he hadn't won that, I just think I couldn't see him survive the summer, and you might have. But of course, it's not a negative. It can never be a negative. But
We wouldn't know,
Do you know what I
mate.
mean?
Sorry, I've been mischievous. Thank you. See you again.
Cheers, mate.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Great chat. Knows his stuff. He's one of the Man United athletic podders, so he knows what he's talking about. Interesting club, Man United. Like we growing up, like you were talking about. Like some people may not get this. The younger audience, you know, they were like our second team. We needed them to stop Arsenal while we were lingering 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th.
They were in days gone by to us what unfortunately City are now. They are the force of good against evil, and City are no force of good, and nor are United. But when it comes to stopping the other lot,
Your
I'm all on
your
board.
enemy's enemy is your friend.
Yeah.
But it was like, but then the younger generation kind of had a slight taster of that with the City game at the end of last season, because obviously it was being referred back to 99. I think I watched it at your house.
We did. I think we did.
Yeah,
We
I
did.
remember.
Well, let's
And then
let's
Ferdinand scored. We didn't really know what to do.
A couple of comments while we were on to Ian. I'm glad we got the tech stuff sorted. How do we set up Sunday without someone? We'll come to that in a second. When are we going to get positive tweets about Ange without the scepticism? Listen, we do get a lot of positive. I mean, I've been criticised for not being as positive. Fine, I'm climbing down on that. It's time to just sit back and go, yeah, Ange, do your thing, and we'll see what happens. I don't like it when you can't say it. You lose a game of football, Newcastle, Arsenal, you're entitled. We are football fans. We are entitled to be a little bit annoyed that we lost. There's plenty of positivity out there. And maybe your algorithm's not working. I don't know. There's plenty of positivity about Ange. We've just won 3 games in a row. We go to United in good form. The results speak for themselves. That's the bottom line. We've won 3 games in a row. Scored 8 goals in those games. Yeah, I'm positive. Let's see what happens Sunday. Dystopia eats money. I'm fully Ange in and always have been. There's
You know what as well?
plenty of people who are.
It's totally rare to actually watch your football team, and from the first minute to the last minute, they absolutely dominate. Football's a play. So actually, it's kind of the matches are broadly decided on. Certainly within penalty boxes, and certainly there are moments that go for each team. Which brings us on to Sunday. United are a moments team. They've got moments players, which worries Gary and me. It definitely does, because you can just see what's going to happen.
Right, Ian sort of.
Yeah,
I mean,
he absolutely nailed
I
that.
don't think he'd heard what we'd
Yeah.
said, but he's echoing exactly what our fears are. They are a transition team. They're very comfortable in transition. Their natural game. They're not going to have to adapt in any way. I feel like when a team has to adapt, like Newcastle adapted, Arsenal adapted, and you could see, and it wasn't their natural game. Okay, they got results, but it so easily could have gone the other way. United haven't got to adapt. They're just going to play what comes to them naturally, and that's what worries me.
By the way, I'm actually going to make. Jay Ashraf said he hooked Bergvall off and went back to doing sideways passing. I'm actually ignore the sideways passing, but actually, I was thinking about the timing of the sub last night, because I was seeing it's such an early sending off. Actually, I was
Would have left it?
thinking leave it for a while and see how the game goes. I mean, don't I was surprised he made a sub quite so early, and then going back to a 4 at the back. Then when we did get Udogie on, I was actually wondering whether we go for a 3-3-3 with Udogie in midfield with Basuma and Sarr, because Udogie's played there for Italy recently, and actually going 3-3-3. And then in the second half, when he brought Kulu on for Johnson, I was wondering, does he go 4-3-2 with Son and Solanke
By
up
the
top?
way, how well is Kulu playing, by the way?
Magnificent.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, going back to my comments before, this guy is making us into a better and more coherent football team, and he can't play every minute, but I also think that one of him or Maddison needs to be on the pitch at really most of the time, whether he did 60 and Maddison does 30, but taking both off, we were a fundamentally worse football team. That's probably the rotation thing. Going back half an hour in this chat, that's the thing that's annoying. We've got to keep some semblance of that.
But in answer to Jay Ashraf, we won 3-0.
Yeah.
Like, how can you say
It didn't
He's hooked.
work.
It didn't. We won through.
I felt
what
sorry
did
for the
you-
kid, but
No. Come
Like-
on, it happened. Like even on Sunday, what's the Saturday? You take off your.
attacking
You're kind of
player.
like mostly the player you're thinking, can you go through it? So I don't have a problem. I just want to leave
I'm
it.
lost with this comment, with respect, right? He hooked Bergville off and went back to doing sideways passes, clueless manager. He won 3-0. What did you... With 10 men, playing for 83 minutes of the game with 10 men against whatever opposition is going to be bloody hard.
Well,
and he won 3-0.
and
His decisions were
I think we
correct. I don't understand.
Did we score 2 minutes after he came on? I think we scored quite pretty
Straight away.
But the point is, that I was of the view of like, hey, just leave it for a bit. Because this is we didn't go out of the Europa League last night, and that goes back to drag us in things like 1-0 down. We can recover from that. We weren't going out of the Europa League last night, so it was just kind of like, you know what, let's just hold it for a while. But it's just this an element of got to do it now. Like, the players are feeling onside. So I've got to play that short goal kick now quickly. It's like,
I think he was disappointed with the start overall. He
I think he was,
also
yeah.
was never hooking Bergwijn after 10 minutes if it didn't. We go down to 10 men. But anyway, whatever. Like you said, we won.
I'm surprised we haven't had a comment from Dragzin's agent about why his
enough
client
minutes.
has been taken off after 7 minutes.
Should we talk about how it is interesting? How are we going to set up against United? Son is out.
We think. Yeah.
Let's say Son's out
Yeah.
because it sounds like he's out.
Yeah.
Odebeau's out.
Yeah.
Richarlison.
Who?
How are we going to set up? What are your thoughts?
Just quickly, I'd like to get the comments in. Sydney Duke, very much a friend of our show. And nailed the changes.
I agree, Sydney Duke.
Also note there was no panic. Players weren't waving their arms around. No
Agreed.
instructions yelled. They looked well coached and knew exactly what the 10
Agreed.
Listen, the 10-man plan was similar to the Chelsea plan. We
Just
know,
carry on.
and I mean this in a good way. This is the way we play, mate. Like that, we carry on.
Yeah, there's going to be
As long as
analysis.
Van de Ven's on the pitch, we're playing like
There's
that.
going to be analysis about the way we've approached 10 men, how other teams approach 10 men. And granted, we played against a notionally weaker team. Would we have played? But we would have played Man City in the same way.
Yeah.
So
I'm here for it now, honestly. Right. Sunday, I don't know because all our wingers are injured and the other one's Timo Werner. He's not starting Mikey Moore.
I mean, this is straight off the cuff because we found out that Son was injured whilst doing this show. Let's assume Son's out. I'm going to throw an idea out there. I don't think many are going to like it. I don't want to see Werner, and I don't think Mikey Moore is going to start. Okay, so actually, the team that I would play genuinely is this. I would do the back four. And by the way, we have stats on the back four, which I'd like to.
We do have some stats on the back four.
I'd
Are
like
you going
to-
to read them out?
I am, because I think they are important.
Are you now the Echo of Glory stats guy?
No, in fact, I'll tell you actually, again, in that conversation with my old man last night, he told me to look into this stat, and I'm pleased that I did. When Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero, and Pedro Porro all start, they have started 22 games for us, and we've got 13 wins and 4 losses. We've scored 44 goals and conceded just 27. So we have a win percentage of 59% when that back four starts. When one of them doesn't start, there have been 25 games of which we've won 11 and lost 11 and conceded 42 goals versus the 27 when they do start. So it's a 44% win rate, and the average goals against jumps up to 1.7 versus 1.2.
So those bottom line numbers are the most important on there. The win percentage goes down from 59 to 44.
59% down to 44 when one of them doesn't start. That's huge.
Well, if you also, the first part of the stats, it sounds like we're winning games 2-1. We're scoring, what was it, scoring 45 and conceding 27. So it's give or take, we're winning games 2-1 with that back five in. And then you go to the other ones and it's, what was the goals? But you can see it's moved the other way. There's quite a demonstrative drop off.
But that's the importance. So when talking about how we're going to set up, I mean, there's never
Back
any
five
doubt
picks
that it's
itself.
about the back five picks itself.
Yeah.
The next question comes with Bissouma or Bentancur.
Where's Bentancur getting this ban?
Well, so I when I was on before Brentford, so he was allowed to appeal by the 19th of September. So this is now kind of, we haven't appealed. So he is now at the behest of that law, whatever it is. And I'm guessing there's going to be a hearing at any point soon. It's also why I'd have play. He's playing well. We're going to have limited time from him coming forward. So it's like run him as much as you can. So I think one of the biggest issues with playing notionally traditional Ange ball with our current squad is that our wingers, and I'm including Son as a left winger, I'm not including Son as a notional second man, like inside forward. None of them are good enough. And I like Johnson, and I like Johnson as an inside forward. I don't like any of them as touchline wingers, which brings me to a solution without Son, and I do not want Timo Werner playing the team.
Go on, I want to know what your solution is. So I've got mine in my head, and I don't think people are going to agree with me at all.
This would throw the team tactically, but you go with the back four as normal.
I've got a feeling you're going to say what I've got in my head.
And I go Gray and Bentancur as a two.
That wasn't where I was going.
Then I'm Kulusevski and Maddison. And then I'm Johnson and Solanke.
Oh, so 4-2-2-2. Who was doing that last season? United.
I think actually,
Gary's.
So you get that box in midfield.
It's not what Gary was going to say.
Not what I was going to say.
Go on.
That's right. Tactical genius,
or not.
or not.
I mean, listen. You know, if Son isn't fit, and Odegaard clearly isn't fit, we're limited on choices. I imagine that what Ange will do will be to chuck Werner in because it keeps the shape. It means that we don't change much, and it's probably the easiest solution. It's not the solution I would want to see. And what I would actually really like to see, thinking about it in my head, I'd really like to see the back five, and then I would go Bentancur over Bissouma.
Yeah.
I would go Johnson right wing.
Yeah.
And then I would go Bergvall and Kulusevski in the middle, and I would go Maddison on the left and Solanke up front, with Maddison sort of drifting in. And so then what you get are those tight three in the middle: Kulusevski, Bergvall, Maddison, retaining the ball, making sure we're not losing it, trying to link up with Solanke up front, trying to get Johnson in. I would let Udogie go high and wide, and I'd pull Porro back a little bit more just to help out to keep the balance. That's what I would do.
Yeah, but Maddison was often played in that front three left-hand position by Southgate,
correct,
and was not very good. So he needs. Or you go
no,
with like
at Leicester. At Leicester, he played in that.
Or you go with 4-3-1-2 kind of thing.
He was very, very good on that left wing coming in, and it's harder, in fact, to pick him up. It might give him, particularly when you've got, I think, Kulusevski and Bergvall in midfield. You know, you can't press on to Maddison because you've got three really good ball retention ball players there. So that's why I'd go that way. I think it would give us a lot more control than Werner.
I think what we're both basically saying here is like whichever way it's actually channeling in, it's playing, and it's actually controlling the ball.
My way's a bit more aggressive than yours.
Well, it would be.
Well, so you think, you know, but in you don't know that.
What we're both saying is that we're both tactical geniuses.
We both don't want Timo Werner on the team. Bless him. Good luck. I hope he does,
some
mate.
of what Angelo Tyro is having today. Will former German Champions League winner, and that Werner for Spurs score a brace? I suspect not. Ross Hughes, it was Ranić who played that 4-2-2-2 formation at United.
And just to pick up on J.R. Sheffield, look, nobody's having a go at anyone, right? And I hear what you're saying, but I actually think, you're down to 10 men. He's saying, guys, my argument is that, yes, we scored soon after the early sub, but we just passed it side to side for large periods with no real threat or penetrative passing. You've got to keep in mind, right? You're playing with 10 men. Control the ball. Keep the ball. If they don't have the ball, they can't score, right? Yeah. You haven't always got to be looking for the goal.
You can't put yourself in risky situations.
You can't always be looking for the goal. And I think what you're talking about is when the opposition don't have the ball, they can't score. It's much easier to play with the ball than without it. So, that's possibly why.
But going back to like Sunday's game, and actually, and Sonny's injury. Sonny came off straight after the third goal. And I'm wondering actually whether he's kicked the turf with that shot, because it was not a very Sonny shot. It was a pretty crap shot, to be honest with you, and even worse goalkeeping. Yeah,
Christ.
I mean that was like, you can imagine 1970s international football kind of like, but that was awful goalkeeping. But I wonder if he kind of mishit the shot, and that caused because he went
sit down instantly from the
shot. He went straight off after that. So I'm hoping, but coming actually onto like our formation, whatever it is, because actually with your formation, the slight thing could be a Maddison in a 1 behind a 2, being Johnson and Solanke, which got obviously brutal pace. I really like Johnson playing inside. Look at the 3 finishes in last week, brilliant finishes, all very similar in that inside right channel. Son the same, and we've said this off air. Sonny is no longer a touchline left winger, and if we want to prolong his career, I think playing as a front 2. With Solanke doing the work, and Solanke's work rate is unreal, because Sonny is still one of the best finishers in the game across Europe. And if you give him a chance, there are not many others you put ahead of him. And I think with they call it a big and little, and and also not many teams play with the 2 up front, and actually defences are kind of like, hold on, what do I do here? So And he had Maddison saying in a one behind that. But I think we've got some footballers there. But Son, Solanke, and Johnson being a kind of front 2 from 3
I would
as a
definitely have them
traditional
closer
front.
together.
I'd have them much closer together. That's one thing.
I really, really, really like what Sidney Duke has said. I don't think Ange will change it because it's too drastic a change. But I could well see if Son was out, you could imagine a back three of Dragoshin, Van de Ven, Romero, and then a 4
Udogie and
of
Porro.
Udogie and Porro, and then you'd go Bentancur and Basuma, and then you'd go Kulusevski, Madison, and Solanke. That's
the team, isn't it?
That's the team. I really like that.
So that said, I'd go Gray, Romero, and Van de Ven because I'd have Gray stepping into midfield. Because you don't need Basuma and Bentancur in there. You can have another football in midfield because you've got 3 defenders. Or the other reason as well about Gray in the midfield that I was talking about is he could drop back into defence, split the defence, and the fullbacks can push forward. I mean, a la Eric Dyer, you know. That's
Eric Dyer on the
Sidney's obviously knows a lot more about Ange. I didn't know that he'd ever played that formation. I don't think he will do it because I think it is too much of a change too soon. But I definitely like it.
I like that.
But the point is that you know, with someone like a Gray, you can, with the ball, without the ball, you can go in those transitions as we did with Eric Dyer, and you can create the overloads elsewhere. So you don't need to start with 3 centre backs. You can have that guy Gray who, as a right centre back, could step into midfield, and then Romero and Van de Ven go into their traditional positions. So you can have that flexibility on the ball, off the ball, and transitions, all that modern chat. Fundamentally, we've got enough players there that can create that sort of thing and create, let's be honest here, unpredictability to the opposition.
It's going to be interesting because Son doesn't miss many football matches for us, and our injuries last year seem to be focused around almost everyone, but defenders. Now it's forwards. Odobert, Son, probably someone else, Richarlison. So interesting to see what he's going to do. We've got a busy week. We've got United, we've got Ferencváros, and then we've got Brighton. Busy week.
I'd rather us be playing football than training.
Yeah,
and actually,
that's what I think.
Said. Yes, I think last season the intense training and frustration with training was actually part of the reason a lot of them were getting injured.
Yeah,
you know.
Right, I'm going to get a parking ticket in a minute, so I'm going to call an end to this. Unless you've got anything else to add,
I don't.
I've got 3 minutes on my.
You're going to ask us our predictions?
I am. Just what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you your predictions. Ian Irving has already stolen mine, so I'll go first for once. I'm going to go 2-2, same as last year. Surprised that United fan didn't predict. Most of them come on here and say they're going to beat us.
He came on very bullish, didn't he? He came on, we've got 3 points. We do really well against you. What's your prediction, Cyril?
Oliver Spiro.
I went to Manchester Uni. I came out with a Desmond 2-2, and I'm going to go with a 2-2 on Sunday.
I've said that.
Yeah,
but you can have it too.
You don't have a monopoly on it. And I had a joke attached to it and a reference.
I got a 3rd at uni, so 3-0 Spurs.
I'm going 2-1 Tottenham. I think we can beat them.
Of course we can.
Definitely think we can beat them.
They're a beatable team, but it's United. We know there's going to be a penalty like last night where it's not soft enough to be overturned, but it's enough.
You're scarred.
And just on Sydney, I agree. I don't think it's going to change the formation. I just wonder what the thoughts are from anybody listening of, instead of Werner, play Maddison, Bergvall, Kulusevski, Johnson. That's what I'd like to see.
Last word to Angelo Tyro, who has been relentless on our comments this week. May I add, we never stop. He's right. We do not stop when we said that, and Spurs will continue to try and score goals, but we do have to stop.
Well, Echo Glue is back on Monday. We never stop.
We never stop. We will be back on Monday. We're talking about United, previewing Ferencváros. We will then be back again next Friday on the back of Ferencváros, previewing Brighton. Thank you for joining us in the comments. If you're listening to this after the live show, hope you've enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, become a member. That's available. Join the community. Help us out here at the wonderful Launchpot Studios. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Ollie, Gary, we will see you on Monday. Here's for a big 3 points at Old Trafford and up the Spurs. We're probably still live because he's chatting in there.
James?
We're done.
We out?